Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a very popular topic: the United States. Most people think the U.S. is a great and successful country. They think this because it has the title of a developed country, a huge economy, and a strong military. But in my opinion, the U.S. is a classic example of a failed state. Why? Because its power has absolutely nothing to do with ordinary Americans. If we look closely, the shiny image the US shows to the world is just a cover up. Let me break it down for you. Part 1: The Economy and Safety. First, let's talk about the economy. The US is a country where the nation is rich, but the people are poor. It's actually very ironic. The US has the number one GDP in the world, but the living conditions of most Americans are much worse than in some developing countries. It doesn't look like a developed country at all. This means the strong economy doesn't mean much to regular folks. The country isn't developing for their well being. For example, look at the terrible things happening there, like gun violence and child kidnapping. If the US government used the money spent on fighter jets and aircraft carriers to install more security cameras on the streets, they could stop 90% of these crimes. At least people would feel safe walking outside. But the government doesn't do that. They would rather throw money at the military to play war games in other countries than help regular Americans by putting up cameras or building good roads and high speed trains. Compare this to China. We are still a developing country, but we can walk on the streets safely late at night. Even smaller, less developed cities have high speed rail. Traveling in China is fast and highly enjoyable. Next, let's look at technology and the military. Yes, we admit the US has the strongest army and tech in the world. But have you noticed? They never use this high tech to help ordinary people. The US has Silicon Valley, but even today, many Americans still complain about bad cell phone signals. It's so funny. You live in the world's top tech country, but your phone calls keep dropping. In China, we entered the 5G era in just a few years. Everyone with a phone can enjoy the benefits of our country's development. And the US military? It's even more embarrassing. They have the best weapons in the world, but they never really win wars abroad. Look at China. We are amazing. We beat the best equipped US Army during the Korean War. Part 3: Education. Now, let's talk about education. I think the US education system is a shame in human history. Usually, more developed countries have better education, not the US. In fact, most regular people can't go to college because the tuition is just too expensive. US universities might be great, but they only teach rich kids. Most ordinary Americans only get a basic education. And guess what? Their basic public education is terrible. Their so-called happy education is so bad that some high school students don't even believe the earth is round. In China, most high school kids can look at an incomplete map and easily figure out the climate of that area. The US gives the best education to the rich and leaves the poor behind. In China, whether you are rich or poor, everyone takes the same college entrance exam, the Gaokao. The rules are fair. Our education system gives poor kids a huge chance to change their lives. Part 4: Government and Healthcare. Finally, let's look at the US government and healthcare. These two things share one key word: efficiency. The US loves to brag that they have the best political and legal systems, but their government is famous worldwide for being slow. A simple lawsuit can take 5 or 6 years and cost a fortune. Normal people just can't afford to play the game. They also claim to have the best healthcare. But look at how they handled the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the worst. The top medical machines, expert doctors, and magic drugs are only for the rich. they mean nothing to the regular Americans who died or lost their families during the pandemic. Conclusion. So, this is the reality. The US hides its huge wealth gap and calls it an economic advantage. It hides its love for war and calls it a military advantage. It hides its monopolies and calls it a tech advantage. It hides its anti intellectual education and calls it an educational advantage. In the end, it successfully dressed up a backward, failed state to look like a strong, developed country. Honestly, it is the biggest joke in human history. That's all for today's episode. What do you think? Leave a comment below. See you next time.